There have been resounding messages of support from Savannah Guthrie's peers in the TV industry, and even President Trump joined calls for Nancy to be brought home safely. But inside Rockefeller Plaza in New York, the support has been less free-flowing. All the sources we spoke to made it clear that Guthrie's Today Show colleagues hope for Nancy's safe return, but the tragedy hasn't wiped out their self-interest, according to the Daily Mail.
I got nightmares in my head, I fear thoughts build up until I can't feel. My mind fills up into a creature, and it haunts me somewhere much deeper. I got nightmares in my head, I fear.
Now, at the end of this episode, I'm also going to share my experience regarding working in a newsroom that was, I assure you, also a viper's nest. What this dynamic reveals is the very obvious reality that some people at NBC were probably happy that Nancy, Savannah's mother, had disappeared, and further, pleased that she's still missing, because this might extend her absence from the show and it might improve their prospects in the media. Now, what this reveals is that there could be a colleague with evil ambitions, yes, but would they go so far as to involve themselves in an abduction plot? Well, I would say that that is unlikely. What do you think? I do think it shows how people who don't like Savannah, and not necessarily in the workspace, might want to do something to keep her off the air. And if that is the case, why? Why now? Or it could be a friend of a staffer or a jealous family member who wanted to give their draft pick an unfair advantage. According to the Daily Mail, sources say production staffers who fear Savannah's high standards and high profile were more relaxed in her absence while Savannah was away. And right now we are at day 37 in Nancy Guthrie's disappearance. They preferred her friendlier, fluffier replacement, Hoda Kotb. Am I saying that right? No idea how to say that. Anyway, on-air talent started thinking about how they could buy themselves more screen time. Now again, one has to wonder, how relevant is Savannah in her mother's disappearance? Was Nancy's disappearance about someone who had a bone to pick with Savannah? Now, according to the Daily Mail, you think the morning show is bad, that's nothing. These people will steal your chair while you're still sitting on it, according to one source. From the hair and makeup people to the producers, you can't trust anyone. They all talk. And 4 days before Guthrie's brief visit to the studio, NBC bosses held a production meeting. Ambitious up-and-comers hoped that that would yield answers about their future, about them. Now, once again, the question comes up whether Savannah's presence at NBC came at someone else's expense and whether her absence might benefit someone. Remember, she went off the air to have her vocal cords operated on in mid to late December and then the first week or so of January. Did that absence sow a seed with someone? And subsequently, did they want to keep Savannah from coming back? Because effectively, what has happened to Nancy has kept Savannah off air for a protracted period. Was that part of someone's plan?
Not a great plan.
Now, you might say that is far-fetched or even stupid, but if you look at the Corey Richards case where this was done, well, apparently a crime was committed because someone was having an affair, well, that would be pretty dumb as well if she thought she was going to inherit money. There are some pretty dumb criminals out there. But according to the Daily Mail, that is the brutal reality of life behind the scenes on America's most watched morning TV show, according to multiple sources who have spoken to the Daily Mail. It's a viper's nest, even if you're suffering, one said. There have been no arrests despite wall-to-wall media coverage, and police are yet to announce any serious leads. They were frustrated when top brass announced that Guthrie would be coming back at a later date and to keep her in their thoughts. In other words, some colleagues that perhaps were glad that Nancy had disappeared and that Savannah was off the air possibly felt frustrated and unhappy when they heard that she would be coming back. Now, back to the article. After a visit to New York on Thursday, NBC released a statement to confirm her return. Savannah Guthrie stopped by the studio this morning to be with and thank her Today colleagues. While she plans to return to the show on air, she remains focused right now, supporting her family and working to help bring Nancy home. But the message was loud and clear. Savannah's going nowhere. Vipers be damned. Now, did you know I worked for 2 years in a big newsroom in Johannesburg, South Africa? And I can tell you that was a viper's nest. Well, for me anyway. I was warned actually not to even think about contributing any content. Now think about that. You work for a newsroom and they order you not to write anything for them. And then when my work got published by another media company, I got into trouble. I was called in for a disciplinary hearing and I was told off. I was also told that any written work I made belonged to them. Fancy that. I'm a content creator, but you literally had people in a content space ordering you to not create content. And, you might say, well, they don't think you're good enough. But then when you publish somewhere else, then they're very unhappy about that. But they still don't want you to create any content. You might step on somebody's toes. Now, when I got permission from an editor eventually to write movie reviews, all hell broke loose from some of the resident journalists. It's incredibly small-minded and like a little schoolyard in a schoolroom. Journalists are fiercely protective of their little courtyards, and I can tell you today, many of those publications don't even exist now today. But the jealousy, insecurity, and the little cliques that form where people are part of little teams, I guess, or on certain sides, all of that is very, very real, and I'm so pleased to be away from that nonsense. But that was something I also experienced as a freelance journalist, and I think there's some of that too in the social media space as well. It's the same but also different in a certain way. But the question does arise at the end of the day, if someone had something against Savannah, would they really take it out against her mother? Or was this a gripe or a grudge against Nancy specifically? What do you think? Let me know in the comments. Well, I'm not going to take it further than that, but I will be doing another video on Nick Reiner, and we're going to be revealing the one person who has been visiting him in jail. Any guesses who that could be? Anyway, thank you for listening, and I'll see you guys next time.